somebody mentioned slaves, and I have a whole episode on slaves that hasn't gone live yet. So, like, let's talk about slaves.
Okay, let's do that first.
Are slaves immoral?
Well, like, wasn't there cases of slaves that wanted to be slaves?
Yeah, well, actually, this is the case in Jewish tradition. So I had to do an episode where I like super dug deep into slavery as approved by God, and was it actually more moral than other slavery of the period? Because I was like, is it like, what was it actually? And one of the interesting things is in Jewish tradition, I can't remember exactly, but like there was a period where you would otherwise give up your slave because like their contract had ended, but if they branded themselves because they liked being your slave so much, they could stay your slave forever.
Oh, so you only had a time. Yeah, the time. There was a time limit to it, basically.
Yeah, and somebody said God warned slave owners to treat their slaves well or they will suffer. That's in the New Testament, by the way, not in the Old Testament. That's where that addition comes in, where it's like treat your slaves like you treat your wife. I think is something like that, right? Like it's like you know. But anyway, yeah. Slavery was different back then. Romans treated their slaves better than Southerners treated black slaves. Fucking untrue in the extreme. This is a modern lie that leftists need you to believe so that you think that chattel slavery was fundamentally unique and bad compared to other forms of historic slavery. It is untrue in the extreme. If you want to talk about the most brutal forms of slavery that I'm aware of in history, probably the most brutal was Greek slavery. Greek slavery was more brutal than Roman slavery. So in Athenian silver mine slavery, the average lifespan was 8 years. They had to so frequently import new slaves because slaves just died like that, right? Like in Roman slavery tradition, the American slavery was actually, in the grand panoply of historic slavery, one of the more moral systems because they economically lost something when the slave died, which was not true. Yeah, Aztec slavery? Bro, do you know how bad Aztec slavery was? In Roman slavery, they would line streets with slaves being crucified. This was a normal thing they did for acting up. Okay, do you know how horrible a crucifixion death is? Like, I'm assuming because a lot of you are Christians, you probably had that beat into you as a kid. This was the regular punishment for slaves in ancient Rome. And you're like, they didn't do that in the South. They did stupid little like neck things like don't run away or we'll put a bell on you and we'll whip you. Come on.
I mean, history was brutal, man. Like, I guess you had to compare it to ancient times. To compare anything to ancient times is actually nutty.
No. It gets worse. They're like, did you know that in the South they raped their slaves sometimes? I'm like, who didn't rape their slaves historically? In the South, you at least weren't supposed to, which is pretty unique in human history. It's still brutal, but like, we should be honest about it. I do not like this, it was a uniquely bad form of slavery, different from all other slavery in human history. It may have been different from native forms of slavery. Some forms of slavery that took place in Africa and some forms of slavery that took place among Native Americans. It was genuinely worse than those. It was not worse than Roman slavery, and it was certainly not worse than ancient Greek slavery.
This is what I love about these conversations. I learn new things all the time because I'm not an expert on slavery. All I know is that the idea that the slaves just came out of that it was people in the West that were like sourcing the slaves. It's bullshit.
Yeah, somebody said the worst of chattel slavery is a trip from Africa. That and the plantations that were meant to break them in the islands, like in Jamaica and stuff like that. Yeah. Those are really horrible places. Again, horrible, not even close to. Okay, let me put it this way. If the difference between me today and saying, Malcolm, if you could live your day human today in the life that you live, or live as a southern chattel slave, right? The difference in quality of life between those things is dramatically closer than the difference between a chattel slave and an Athenian silver mine slave. In terms of like how bad the quality of life was. So he said, what about the Spartan slaves? The Spartan slaves had one of the uniquely good lives.
Really? Why was that?
They basically just got to live their own lives so long as they paid really heavy taxes. And I mean, if Cryptea was a thing, they occasionally were subject to random Spartan use, could kill them at any time. But outside of that, they basically just lived their own lives and had to pay heavy taxes to Sparta. It wasn't that bad, the Helots. I mean, they lived as second-class citizens, but they were the majority to the extent that, like, living as second-class citizens doesn't matter when you're 80% of the population.
Yeah.
So being a Helot was kind of like being a normal middle-class American. A billionaire can kill you whenever they want, and they don't face legal repercussions. And they have power over your life, and you don't really have a lot of impact on politics. But you know what? You still get to kind of live your life the way you want to.
That's kind of true. That sounds like a Starship Troopers thing.
Too real though. Yeah, the billionaires just come up and shoot you, and they don't even, nothing's gonna happen, right?
Well, they do it kind of sneaky, like, you know, like they probably hire, they probably wouldn't even do it themselves. Just hire someone to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're with your Caitlyn Jenner, you can run over an old person. Nobody cares.
So we are living in a slave state.
Okay, so slavery. The question is slavery, like, does it have positive effects on a society? And the answer is it doesn't. It actually is, like, economically terrible for a society. If anything, if you do sort of the calculations, the descendants of slaves should be paying the South reparations. They did so much economic harm to the South. It's terrible because you don't build the technology. This is largely why Rome likely never industrialized, because they had so many slaves, right? Like, they had all of the knowledge they needed to for, like, basic steam power, basic hydraulic power, but they didn't build it because they had those freaking slaves, and they only had those slaves because their neighbors were so easy to conquer. If my ancestors in Britain weren't such witless fucks, we wouldn't have had our people fuel the Roman Empire slave trade and allow them to never to develop industrialization.
Yeah, well, it's like you can increase increase output by just stealing more slaves, right? Whereas, like, in a society where you can't do that, you're forced to innovate in order to achieve scale. Yeah. It makes sense.
So he's pointing out that the Brazilian slavery in Brazil was much worse than the United States, which it was to my understanding. Oh, in that episode, we also talked about, like, SMEX slavery, like, are SMEX slaves good? Oh, I'm on Twitch, so I don't even think I need to say anything. Can you have like sex slaves? Like, when are sex slaves good? When are sex slaves bad? And the answer is like sex slaves are generally pretty bad because you end up breeding with like weaker populations that you conquered. This was the episode where we go into the difference between.
Okay, but what if you now have contraceptive technology?
Yeah, I mean, they might be useful for that, but I just think it's too risky. Somebody might, end up forming an emotional attachment to one. It's much better just to like handle the population. I mean, that's how Muhammad died, right?
I have no clue.
Jewish sex slave. Yeah, he killed her family and her husband and her kids, and he was like, "Why did you poison me?" It's like, well, you killed my kids and my husband and made me a sex slave, so
she just played like the long con, basically?
Yeah.
Damn.
Poisoned him, died horribly.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. That's crazy.